The paranoia of the narcissist. All narcissists experience paranoia. It serves a purpose to assist with the assertion of control. As a consequence of being created through a genetic predisposition towards narcissism allied with a lack of control environment, narcissists are hypersensitive to threats to control. And we have been created so that we pick up upon those threats and, instinctively, and in some terms consciously, we respond in a manner by which we nullify those threats to control and operate in a manipulative way to nullify those threats and to keep people under control. Control being one of the most important aspects of the prime aims. By causing a narcissist to always be aware of those that are around them. What are they saying? Why is he looking at me like that? Where has that person gone? Why have they taken so long? Why did they say that? What did that mean? By interpreting the actions and behaviours and the words of other people in a suspicious manner, this paranoia aids the narcissist in remaining vigilant to threats to control and ensuring that control is asserted. This paranoia may be minimal with certain narcissists, particularly with regard to the greater and the ultra, and is seen more excessively with mid-range and especially those of a lesser variety. There will be instances of believing that people are out to get that person, that they're being spoken about, and in an adverse fashion. That it will cause the narcissist to interpret somebody looking at them as some form of threat, and therefore it motivates them through questioning that individual, threatening that individual, possibly even assaulting them, to nullify that perceived threat to control. Remember, it isn't what the other person is saying or doing in actuality that is the gauge of this, it is how it is perceived by the narcissist. Accordingly, paranoia is always present with narcissists. Its scope and extent varies, but it serves a purpose. In the same way that your throat becomes dry and uncomfortable to tell you that you're dehydrated and therefore you should seek hydration before it becomes too problematic to the extent that you suffer injury or death, your body has that self-defense mechanism. You recognize it as thirst. Your body creates a sensation, the discomfort, and also the knowledge that that means that something needs to be done. And therefore you take the remedial action. The narcissism operates in a similar way. Its job is to protect the narcissist, and in so doing, it must make the narcissist pursue the prime aims, control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. If it didn't, the narcissist would not survive and would not thrive. Therefore, the narcissism has a number of mechanisms that are designed to make the narcissist feel a particular way and think a particular way, so that the narcissist is then motivated to seek out the prime aims. Paranoia is one of those mechanisms. By way of an example of the rampant paranoia of a narcissist, we turn to Lancashire Live with an article by Rachel Smith, which leads with the title, "Monster Kept Partner Captive in Loft for 5 years and chained her to his arm to stop her escaping." On a holiday to Greece, Michael Cooper believed his terrified partner had smuggled her ex along. That sentence there demonstrates the level of paranoia of this individual, that he believes that his partner would somehow bring the ex along on holiday also. Of course, you would think, how preposterous, how ridiculous. What on earth would he be thinking that for? What evidence is there to support that that is the state of affairs? And there isn't any. But remember, in the mind of the narcissist, his narcissism perceives reality in a particular way, warping it, twisting it, so that it makes that narcissist truly believe that that's something that she would do. He doesn't sit there and think to himself, right, I want to fuck with her head, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to accuse her of smuggling her ex. He actually believes it, because his narcissism makes him believe it, so that he then makes that accusation, provoking her, in order to assert control over her and draw fuel. More details are revealed from this case that a woman was left a shadow of her former self, consequence of ensnarement, after being kept prisoner in her own home for 5 years. Imprisonment, assertion of control. Michael Cooper, age 50, fitted bars to the windows and forced the woman to sleep in the loft of their home in Poulton-le-Fylde, near Blackpool. He was so paranoid his partner would leave the house, he chained her arm to his own and secured it with a padlock. When he thought she had been trying to chop at the chains, he broke her finger. Paranoia, revision of history, physical assault. Preston Crown Court heard. He also strangled her, physical assault, in a horrifying incident in which she thought she was going to die. Alison Mather, prosecuting, told Preston Crown Court that between 2015 and 2020, the woman was locked up every night to prevent her from leaving. At first, he fitted a lock to the bedroom door, but feared she had discovered the code, paranoia, and moved her to another room. There, he boarded up the windows and slept on a mattress outside the room to prevent her from leaving, assertion of control. Later, he forced her to sleep in the loft, which he secured with a hatch. There was no bathroom, and his partner had to ask for permission to come down to use the bathroom. Ordering about, assertion of control. I was living in constant fear of being assaulted, locked away, ridiculed and undermined, she said. Invalidation, belittlement, imprisonment, assault, all methods of manipulation. This was a day-to-day occurrence, repeated and sustained actions, and my life was stressful beyond anything I've experienced before or since. I was refused to have friends, isolation, assertion of control, or any kind of normal life. Michael controlled every aspect of my days to such an extent I wasn't allowed to have social media. Isolation, assertion of control. The court heard on one occasion Cooper threatened, use of threat, to stab his partner's eyes with a fork and pin her to the ceiling. When drinking, his paranoia increased, and on a holiday to Greece, he believed his partner had smuggled her ex along. Chloe Fordham, defending, said, Cooper's behaviour was born out of paranoia rather than malice. She said, this man isn't someone who didn't care for his partner. He was led by feelings of paranoia into behaving in this despicable way. It was not a sadistic desire to be cruel. Of course, you may well be laughing at the comment there of the barrister defending him, but in a sense she's accurate, because he believed that he cared for her, driven by his own delusion, even though, of course, the evidence demonstrated that he was not. It wasn't that he sat there and thought, do you know what, I'm going to do this because I enjoy seeing her being mistreated in this way. Naturally, of course, he will receive fuel from her responses, but in actual fact, paranoia, through his narcissism, will have driven him to behave in this fashion. He believes that in effect he's doing it for her own good, that she needs to be imprisoned in this way to prevent her from leaving, because that would not go down well for her or for him. In June 2020, the woman escaped when she managed to flee to a local petrol station and call the police. Cooper was arrested and denied, issue of denial, first line of the twin lines of narcissistic defence, any controlling or coercive behaviour, claiming he had taken necessary steps to secure his home, but had not assaulted anyone. Lie, revision of history. He later pleaded guilty during a trial at Preston Crown Court. Miss Fordham said, since his remand into custody, Cooper is taking medication to control anxiety. Notice the blame shifting, he believes it's anxiety, but actually the anxiety is a product of his narcissism, and his new partner, who supported him in court, reported no signs of abuse in their relationship. Already notice he's moved on to somebody else, showing the seamless intimate partner primary sources that is common with the narcissist, and of course that person hasn't reported any abuse because she's in the golden period. Give it a few months and it will start to show. Speaking about her ordeal, Cooper's ex said, I became a shadow of my former self. I became a completely different person, and despite being free from Michael's clutches, I haven't been able to return to how I was before. I'm scared to go outside and I question myself regularly, wondering whether what I am doing is allowed. I'm incredibly nervous and anxious, and I'm always looking behind me in case I am being followed. I find it hard to have an opinion. Michael took my opinions and thoughts away from me. That is the way that the narcissist strips the individual of their person, and told me I was worthless. Belittlement. He has ruined my life. Those of you who have been involved with narcissists will recognise some of the experiences that that individual was talking about as a victim. Sentencing, Judge Darren Preston said, Over a period of 5 years, you made the life of your then partner an absolute misery. Like the complete and clearly pathetic and inadequate man you are, you belittled her, you assaulted her, and you imprisoned her. From 2006, you suspected her of an affair with an ex, Paranoia, based on no evidence at all. You drank heavily, abrogation of responsibility and accountability, and were frequently aggressive, abusive, and paranoid, to the point of complete absurdity. This case was described as a reign of terror. It is difficult to imagine a more serious example of coercive control than your effective imprisonment of your partner. The damage you cause cannot be under-exaggerated. You inflicted untold damage. He sentenced Cooper to 4 years for controlling or coercive behaviour. Lots of narcissistic indicators with regard to this individual. He shows a sense of entitlement. He orders around his partner. He expects her to respond to that she must do as he states without delay or equivocation. That he operates without accountability in terms of not providing her with any emotional support. That he doesn't show any attempt to address the issues in the relationship in a meaningful fashion. He never apologizes. He tells lies. He shows an abrogation of responsibility as a consequence of his heavy drinking. He lacks emotional empathy because of the manipulative behaviours, the very numerous manipulations that he utilises. His behaviour is clearly arrogant and dismissive, that he exhibits no patience and a closed mind. He's manipulative in terms of, undoubtedly at one point he flattered her, but then took that away when the golden period ended. He tells lies. He triangulates her with other people. Undoubtedly would give her silent treatments. There's use of physical violence. There's smearing. There's invalidation, belittlement, withdrawal, denial, the use of guilt, provocation, projection, blame shifting. I suspect that individual is prone to word salads as a consequence of the paranoia that is exhibited. He'd be argumentative, engage in shouting. There's isolation, intimidation, bullying, deflection. There'd be cross-examination, always questioning her about what she's been doing. He would levy false accusations against her. Accusations would come out of nowhere. He would find fault with everything that she would do. Undoubtedly, he would create false problems and bring up issues from the past. He had no boundary recognition. He treated her as an extension of himself, and, of course, saw no boundary recognition by the fact that he kept her prisoner in her own home. He showed lots of different aspects of the narcissistic dynamic, of course. He engaged in character trait acquisition and black and white thinking. He exhibited the need to assert control. He shows a repeated response to perceived threats to that control. He engaged in the exhibition of envy and jealousy. There's objectification, compartmentalization, huge amounts of paranoia. Accordingly, he shows many aspects of the narcissistic dynamic and exhibits a clear sense of entitlement, an absence of emotional empathy, a lack of accountability, haughty behaviours, manipulative behaviours, poor boundary recognition, and various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic that would, of course, confirm that this individual is a narcissist. There'd be those that would think that it's perhaps paranoia that comes from somewhere else, but for his behaviour to be exhibited in this manner, repeatedly, demonstrating an absence of emotional empathy, it's clear that he's a narcissist. Where might he fall in terms of cadre? Difficult to say. We don't have sufficient information. I suspect it would not be cerebral, most likely somatic, quite simply because they're the most common. We don't know anything more about his lifestyle, but on the balance of the type of, the number of narcissists that fall within somatic, that's the most common one. So one would think probably there. What about his school? Definitely not a greater in terms of the cack-handed way that he went about this and ultimately, of course, was caught. He doesn't seem to operate a facade. He's brutish in his behaviours, and ultimately we see that there's use of physical violence and heated fury. The fact that he evidently is an individual of low charm. We're not given any information about his hobbies or background in terms of intelligence or employment, but one would sense that there's low cognitive function. He appears to have a low threshold on his ignited fury. His behaviours are rather obvious. He's deluded and superficial, therefore shows many traits of the lesser narcissist. It's possible that he's a lower lesser, or maybe middle lesser. I don't see that he has the charisma or intelligence, or the other characteristics that would accord with upper lesser. So most likely he's either lower lesser or middle lesser, possibly middle lesser because he has some mid-range traits of thinking that he actually cares for her. Accordingly, this individual is clearly a narcissist and most likely somatic and probably lower lesser or middle lesser. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.